welcome to the Motivational Millennial Podcast. I'm Ivy LeClaire.
And I'm Blake Brandis.
Our conversation today is inspired by our interview with Daniela Plattner, and the theme is intuition and purpose. Blake, do you want to kick us off on this theme today?
Absolutely. I love when Daniela was talking about actively cultivating her intuition, which is something I had never really thought of before. I think we tend to think of intuition as this static experience that we have of, your intuition feels something, but I never thought of this idea of actively developing your intuition, meaning allowing yourself to listen more carefully to what your body is telling you, to what your instincts are telling you. And Daniela's practice of this was through a dance-based practice called Five Rhythms that she's been facilitating for a number of years. And what I found so powerful about her story was that in thinking through a lot of major decisions that I've had to make over the years, I've kind of known what decision I was ultimately going to make like 6 months to a year before I actually made it. And I think there was either a fear that was stopping me or my brain hadn't caught up with my intuition. And so I think it's really powerful, this idea of listening to your intuition. And then what she pointed out is really the hard part, which is then acknowledging it and acting on it. And so for her, she was in this consulting role that looked really perfect on the outside and seemed to be making the kind of impact and the financial abundance that she was wanting. But her intuition was telling her that this actually wasn't the right fit for her. And when she finally listened to it and went off and started her own mission-based work, her entire life changed dramatically for the better. And so I thought that was just a really great reminder and encouragement to both listen to ourselves and to then act when we can feel a message coming through us clearly.
Do you have an example of this in your own life?
Sure. I think every dysfunctional work project that I've ever worked on, I've known a number of months before it was ending that it was not a great fit. But I was telling myself that, oh, need the money, or, oh, it's okay. Yeah, everyone hates their work or some part of their work. And to a certain extent, that's true. But I think there's a difference between having challenging parts of your work and still really loving and being engaged in your work, and having challenging parts of your work that no longer feel aligned with who you are, and that there needs to be some type of change. And so I think the tension, Daniela brought this up, is that there are external realities that are at play. Like you may need a certain amount of money to pay your rent every month. And that doesn't mean this current thing you're doing is the only way to pay your rent this month. But if other options feel limited, it might be a lot more challenging. So I guess the other part of intuition is opening yourself up to the possibility that things could be different, and then looking at what you can practically do to make those different things happen.
How do you tap into your intuition? I mean, intuition can be tapped into through physical sensation of our body, through some people, it's like just images in their brain that sort of pop up. For me, it's a gut feeling. I can feel it in my solar plexus, like very strongly, what is the right thing to do. So how do you tap into your intuition?
So for me, it manifests as a feeling of magnetism or repulsion, in the sense of like, am I being drawn towards something? Am I being drawn into something? Am I excited about it? Am I thinking about ways to create it, to make it better? Or am I being pushed away from it? Am I withdrawing? Am I thinking about how I can not have to do that thing anymore? And it's interesting when you're in a situation. So I'm thinking my PhD, for example, when I was feeling such a strong push away from it and the sense of, repulsion, and I almost quit. But I think sometimes the intuition is not a yes or no. It's not a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Sometimes it's, this thing needs to be different. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to happen. It just needs to be different. And so in my case, I went to my PhD supervisor and I told her, I was like, hey, I really don't know if I can do this. I keep trying to try all the productivity tricks and making myself focus and sit down and, punishing myself, rewarding myself, giving myself space, giving myself time, like all these different hacks, and none of them are working. And I said, I just feel so stuck. And then she said, well, why don't we make this project more creative? And that's when she came up with the idea for me to be able to submit an album as part of my PhD dissertation. And that then kicked back on my intuition, my magnetism, and I was drawn into it again. So I was like, okay, cool. This isn't just you having to fight with a bunch of theorists in your head and on paper. You actually now get to create something that's meaningful to you, that you care about, and that explains the things you're talking about in your dissertation. So I share that example because I think sometimes we feel like intuition is like you're either all the way in or all the way out, but sometimes it's just an indicator that something needs to change. Have you found that in your own experience, Ivy?
Well, I think that's interesting that, you're getting this sense of there's something off here, either a little bit off or a huge amount off, and that's what needs to shift, not necessarily just the whole thing. I mean, I do think of intuition in terms of making decisions, and I also think of intuition too when I'm coaching someone or having a conversation with someone or I meet someone new. It's like if I'm speaking with a client and they're sharing a story with me and I get an intuitive hit that's a feeling of fear, even if they're projecting confidence. Or sometimes it's like I get an image of an eagle or something totally random. And I'm just like, I just got this image of an eagle that popped into my head. And sometimes they're like, wow, oh my gosh, the eagle is my spirit animal or something. Or they might say, do you know, it's not an eagle. It's more like a sparrow or a hummingbird because this, and this, right? So I know, I think intuition is also, for me, I consider intuition a tap into infinite wisdom that is, a conduit to a type of wisdom that's beyond our intellectual comprehension. Because I do believe there's wisdom in the universe. I mean, to me, science and the intricate way that our nervous system works or the way that the solar systems exist, like all of that is just some kind of amazing wisdom that happens, and it's physics is wisdom to me.
Yeah, I mean, evolution is natural wisdom. It's
Yeah, it
and the thing is,
is.
it's random, but it converges on a purpose. Like that's the beauty of it. It's not that someone's out there manipulating the genes. It's just that like these genes were better suited to survive in this environment. So over time, they develop this purpose. But the purpose is remarkable in how complex it can be.
Yeah, I really feel like this is why, for me, intuition has been such an invaluable part of my life. And I think it's really cool to think about cultivating it because it is something that for me comes very easily and naturally, but it doesn't for everyone. And that's okay. I think that everyone does have intuition. They just may not be used to thinking about the ways that it shows up or manifests for them or listening to it, understanding it. But it's something that is just, I don't claim to know the exact mechanics or, because I'm not the creator of the universe. So I don't even know. Is there a creator of the universe? Who knows? I don't know. But my point is that consistently over time, if I trust my gut over what my intellect is telling me, I can analyze a situation all day and all night, but I need to go with what feels right, with what makes me, like you said, feel alive rather than feel small. Even if the thing that makes me feel small, if I were to write out a chart of pros and cons, has more intellectual pros. You just have to trust it.
Right. And probably there's some distinction here about in things affecting you in your life in the personal realm versus like political opinions or I mean, I don't know, maybe you feel it's there too. What because I'm interested, right? Like I feel personally one of the problems with current politics is people are running solely on emotion and not factual basis.
I mean, emotion and intuition are two different things to me.
Sure. Okay, that's a good point.
So,
So intuition is not necessarily a fear reaction.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly believe intuition is a conduit to greater knowing
Hmm.
that is indescribable beyond the sort of natural plane, which is where our brain tends to operate. And, this is a bad decision because, in the example of Daniela's life, in that, intellectually, that job she was in checked a lot of boxes and was like the perfect role for her. But like her gut was just saying, or I'm calling it her gut, but her intuition was saying, like, this is not the right path. There's something going on. So I just feel like maybe for some people, your emotion is a way that you're understanding or interpreting intuition. But for me, it's not. It's my intuition is its own separate set of knowledge and alarm systems in a way. I mean, sometimes it's an alarm system, you know.
That makes sense.
I still think it feels a little bit different to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does for sure. And I think part of the way you can tell is emotion tends to be temporary and reactive, whereas intuition tends to be sustained. Like you might get stirred up by a conversation or argument or something, and that would be the emotion. But the intuition, like if you tap into it today, you tap into tomorrow, you tap into it the next week, and it consistently keeps telling you some variation of the same thing. I think that is a little more stable. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like, at least in my personal experience, it's like when you get quiet, that's why, I think in a lot of ways, meditation and for some people, prayer, some kind of stillness, just being out in nature for people, you know, where it's just quiet and you're feeling connected. If you get to a place of stillness, where you're not worrying, you're not fretting, you're not analyzing, and you're also sort of releasing attachment to the gambit of emotions you may be experiencing. Like noticing, I'm feeling sadness right now. And just being quiet and being with the sadness, like that tends to answers and peace and all of that, it will well up within you naturally versus I'm feeling sadness. I wonder why that is. What caused that? How can I make this not happen again? How can I make this where I don't have to feel this anymore? Like it's a
Mm,
totally different experience. So I feel like that's why I feel like intuition is sort of this third thing to me, at least I just consider it when I'm not distracted by noise, which I often am. I mean, we all are in this culture. Like, I'm
sure.
not trying to say that I'm just, like calm and meditating all the time. I mean, it's got to be conscious. So I think that's where what your point is here, and what her point is about cultivating it, right? Getting used to what does intuition feel like, or sound like, or for everybody it's different.
Hmm.
How do you learn to trust that over time so that you ultimately live a life that is in true alignment for yourself on a level that is beyond your conscious comprehension, that is your higher consciousness alignment? That's a really big concept to
Hmm.
to think about, and sort of accept,
Well, speaking of alignment, what was interesting for you about Daniela's point about purpose in the interview?
Oh, so we recorded this interview before the fall semester. Is Blake, but I'm just letting the audience know that this was a few months ago before Blake started his speaking tour. And she was talking specifically about pain plus passion equaling your purpose, or combining the thing that's hard and painful for you with what you love to create a path of action. And for her, she was talking about how the thing that she loved was creative arts. And she combined that thing with her pain at the time, which was around body image, to create a purpose or path of action that took her into schools where she was teaching about food and that sort of thing with using creative arts. And the reason it was so meaningful to me is because at that time, I was really experiencing a lot of pain around my anxiety. I have generalized anxiety disorder. And, I've been building a coaching practice for a couple of years now. And at the time, I felt like the anxiety was like my adversary to success. I felt like the only way that I was going to have a successful coaching practice was if I got rid of my anxiety. And I hated it so much. I hated myself for having it. I mean, and I've had GAD since I was like in middle school. So it just, it was sort of it was a lot of pain, many years of pain. So when she said that pain plus passion was perfect, I remember thinking, this sounds so crazy to me. And I thought, what is the thing that that's most painful for me right now? Like I'm really honest with myself. And it was anxiety.
Mm.
And I thought, holy crap, like what would it look like and what would it be for me to take everything that I've learned, all the spiritual practices, therapeutic practices, all of these things, plus my own personal experience of having anxiety as an entrepreneur, like what that looks like, and bring it into my coaching practice. Because it's like, I love coaching. I love helping people. I love supporting people. My pain is anxiety. How do I bring this into my purpose? And so for me, the interview with Daniela was so meaningful and important because it helped me to find a path in life that allows me to really face a part of myself that I was really ashamed of, which was my mental health, put it out front and center of myself, my business, and help people see who are also experiencing that kind of mental health, help them see that it's not something to be ashamed of. It's just part of who you are, not all of who you are. You can thrive beyond anxiety, which is the name of my business, and to really help people with that very specific pain, and
Mm-hmm.
it was so great. I mean, I'm just really grateful for this interview and for the timing of that because now I'm able to, it was, she was talking a little bit about this too, about a part of us not feeling like we can teach something if we don't know exactly what it is, or don't feel like we're experts. But in reality, teaching helps us learn so much more. We get to like learn from our students because we're answering all of these amazing questions. And so not only do I get to help people around a particular issue that is so close to my heart and that I know can be so devastating, which is anxiety, but also I'm learning more and more about myself, even more techniques, more about what's helping me really connect to my highest self and the compassionate part of me rather than listening to sort of the inner critic, anxious part of me. And, I get to grow along with my clients and with my audience, and it's incredible.
Mm. I think that's so inspirational. And the thing, too, is that you have such compassion for the people you work with because you have experienced it. I think that's one of the real benefits of using your pain because you know from firsthand experience how debilitating this can be and how frustrating and how hopeless it can make you feel. And so I think that also, in a way, points to, from a business perspective, something that people really care about trying to fix in their lives. You know, I'm sure there are some people out there who really want to become great jump ropers, but I don't necessarily know that they're that motivated to try to fix that part of their lives for the most part. But someone who's suffering from generalized anxiety disorder, that's a major impact on the way they live their daily life, and they really
Mm-hmm.
care about fixing it. And so I think one of the great things about Daniela's formula is it also helps you look at what work is really impactful that you might want to do in the world. And so that's a great and very simple formula, but I think an incredibly powerful one, as you've just demonstrated. I mean, it's helped you form your entire new business.
And I think that it's not only healing and beneficial for people that you might be impacting by combining your pain and your passion, but it's healing for you as well. This has been healing for me because I am greatly reducing slash removing the shame that I have around having anxiety, which
Hmm.
has in turn helped me really reduce the shame that I have in general.
Sure.
It was probably the largest source of shame for me was my anxiety. And so just being like, listen, I have GAD. Yeah, man, it sucks. Sometimes I wake up and I'm just like, there's nothing has changed, but I just wake up and I'm like, I feel really worried and scared about life. We all have those kinds of moments. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, and it's something that, yes, I have that, but I also love my life and I also have really meaningful relationships and I also put myself out there and I also have a 6-figure business. You can have anxiety and still have a very successful business, a fulfilling life at the same time, And I think that that's really important to show myself and to show other people. And so you're giving people permission. Like, it's okay that you have body image issues. Here's how we look at it. Here's how we talk about it. Here's how we, help ourselves to eat better and treat ourselves better and all of that. So I think it can be a really powerful formula for your living your life in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for showing up in your truth. And we thank Daniela for bringing her wisdom to us. And we thank you, our amazing listeners, for being with us in this conversation. And we hope that you have tapped into whatever that pain and passion is for your life and developing your purpose, and that your intuition maybe a little more in tune today. Maybe something you can do, a little dance, maybe a little meditation, something to listen to yourself a little bit more and really feel where you are and what's true for you. So we appreciate you being with us, and we look forward to catching you next week on the Motivational Millennial Podcast.
Bye. For show notes and previous episodes, or to learn more about our coaching and event offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. That's millennial, MILLENNIAL. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
Our theme music was composed and performed by our very own Blake Brandis.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Brittany Felix. Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!